Grandma thanked him and went home and got her Winchester repeating rifle and immediately went to the construction site and ordered the men off her property. The foreman ignored her like he did her son Wiley. There were about 100 men working with mule teams and scrapers building the right-of-way, while others were laying cross ties. Still others were laying the steel rails as fast as the men laid the cross ties. After they ignored her demand to get off her property, Grandmother took a stick and drew a line across the right-of-way and said, "I shoot the first man who crosses that line." And she walked back far enough from them so they couldn't grab her rifle and take it from her. Then she sat down on a log and waited. One man was foolish enough to test her threat by walking up to the line, but then she raised her rifle ready to fire, and he stepped back.
Okay.
After a little while, the boss man hollered, "All right, men, that's all for today. We don't want no bloodshed." And they hitched up their teams to the wagons and left. Some left by hand cars and some by foot. Some didn't live too far away. Grandmother became a celebrity after this. The news quickly spread like wildfire throughout the county and the state about the little woman who took a rifle and stopped the big bad railroad men from building a railroad. When we asked her if she would really have shot someone, she said she didn't want to kill nobody, but she meant to stop them from building that railroad on her land. A few days later, after this incident, the railroad sent their representative to talk to Grandma about a settlement. She told Mr. Yoakum what they offered her, and he told her, "Don't take it, that ain't half enough." He suggested to her a more appropriate settlement to which both she and the railroad representative agreed. I never knew how much money she got from the railroad, but I do know in the settlement was a clause granting her the privilege to ride the trains free as a goodwill gesture. The railroad personnel were real nice to Grandmother after that. I remember my first train ride with her after they got the railroad built. The train crews were given orders to stop the trains from her wherever she flagged them down. That day when we took our first ride, she went to town to do some shopping, and so she took me along. We walked to the railroad and waited for the train. When she saw it coming, she walked onto the track and flagged down the train as it approached about a quarter of a mile away to give the engineer time to stop the train for us where we were standing. As the long freight train came near, Grandmother took my hand and said to me, "Don't be scared. It won't hurt you." But if she had not held my hand, I would have bolted into the forest, because the big steam locomotive was the most terrible, awe-inspiring thing I'd ever seen. The engineer stopped his engine where we were standing. Smiling down, he bade us to come aboard. Grandma boosted me up, and the fireman took my hand and helped pull me aboard. Then Grandmother climbed up on board. All during this time, that big locomotive was steaming and hissing and belching smoke like nothing I'd ever seen before. Grandma sat behind the engineer, and I held on to her for dear life as the engineer released the brakes and eased open the throttle. Just about 1/4 an inch, and the big engine roared like a blast of dynamite, and the big wheels started to spin, and we were underway. What a ride! The way that big engine bucked and swayed, and the smell of white-hot steam, and the feel of the long string of straight cars lurching behind us. The bust of the whistle at the railroad crossings was a thrill few little boys had ever experienced, and one I've not forgotten till this day. Right then and there was when I decided I would become a locomotive engineer when I became a man, not realizing that such jobs were reserved for white men only. I had to settle for a job as a cook on the diner.